In the year 1598, a violent storm struck, bringing the sea's treasures to the shore. Among these treasures, a mermaid appeared before the villagers, who stared at her in disbelief. Realizing that mermaids were not just mythical stories, a man named Yang found her and decided to present her as a gift to the new ruler of the land, Governor Kim Damyeon. When the governor arrived, Yang promised to show him something he had never seen before in his life. When the governor saw the mermaid, it was as if something deeply stirred within him. Yang felt proud to possess a mermaid. The governor told him that from her body the finest oil could be extracted and that her tears would turn into pearls. The governor then revealed that he knew of Yang's past mistakes, one serious enough to warrant execution. He offered Yang a single solution, to spare his life in exchange for handing over the mermaid. Yang had no other choice but to agree. The governor took the mermaid, but his true intention was to set her free, returning her to the sea where she belonged. At that moment, Yang resolved to take revenge on the governor, who had forcibly taken away his freedom. The mermaid gained her freedom, but reached out her hand to the governor as she swam in the water, signaling for him to touch her. When he did, something magical happened. It was said in the village that anyone who touched a mermaid would have their fate intertwined with hers. Their bond of love would last a lifetime and could only be broken by death. Yang was delighted, believing that if he could reach the governor, he could reclaim his freedom. Centuries passed, and in modern times, a cunning con artist named Jun Jae operated in the city. Assisted by his two friends, Jo Nam-do and Tae-oh, Jun Jae had a talent for deceiving the wealthy and swindling them out of their fortunes. He also possessed a unique ability to hypnotize people, which made it easy for him to gain access to any location. In one of his schemes, Jun Jae impersonated a prosecutor and dealt with a businesswoman who was attempting to bribe her way out of trouble. She wanted to protect her son, who was under investigation for causing a classmate's suicide. With the help of his tech-savvy friend, Tae-oh, they successfully tricked the woman and obtained a large sum of money from her. After completing the scam, the group decided to go their separate ways for a while to let things cool down. Jun Jae headed to the seaside to enjoy a quiet vacation. However, his peaceful retreat was disrupted when he heard strange noises in his room. He found the place in complete disarray, food scattered everywhere, and a mysterious girl hiding among his clothes. At first, he was terrified and tried to drive her out, but she fought back with incredible strength, leaving him no choice but to give in. The girl, who was mesmerized by the sight of the ocean, rushed to dive into it, because she was, in fact, a mermaid. She had spent her entire life in the sea until a violent storm cast her ashore. Upon waking, she was shocked to discover her tail had turned into legs. The innocent girl stood before Jun Jae, but he saw her only as a strange thief who had broken into his room. She held something tightly in her hands, refusing to let go. It turned out she had stolen a piece of fruit. Jun Jae stared at her in disbelief, seeing her as a most peculiar and mysterious thief. He took a picture of her and called the police to take her away. After she was gone, he checked the photo and noticed a bracelet on her wrist. He quickly sent the picture to Jo Nam-do, asking him to research its history. The girl, experiencing everything for the first time, was fascinated by cars, people, and streets. At the police station, she didn't respond to their questions because she lacked the words to communicate. She only played with anything around her. Jun Jae, meanwhile, was with his friend Minji and discovered that the bracelet was 400 years old. He immediately went to the station to retrieve the girl, whose name he didn't even know. There, he hypnotized the officer to secure her release. Jun Jae's goal was to take the bracelet from her, but she refused to even shake his hand or touch anyone. Changing his strategy, he invited her to lunch and bought her a gift, planning to steal the bracelet afterward. Noticing she was barefoot and her feet were injured, he took her to buy shoes. The girl, clueless about how to wear them, watched as he put them on her himself. He also bought her a new dress, which she didn't know how to wear either. Determined to get rid of her quickly, he took her to lunch, hoping to steal the bracelet then. He watched in embarrassment as she ate like a wild animal. He leaned closer, pretending to teach her table manners, and managed to steal the bracelet. With his mission accomplished, he left her, promising to return. He packed his bag to leave the hotel for good. The girl waited for a long time. As he tried to escape, he felt an inexplicable pull back to her. Returning, he found her sitting in the rain, waiting for him. He opened his umbrella over her, and when she reached out and held his hand, their souls intertwined, just like what had happened centuries ago. In the second episode, the governor met the mermaid again. She told him she could read his thoughts and asked him to save her. They agreed to meet again, making sure this wouldn't be their last encounter. He left a sign that would signal her to approach the shore. Meanwhile, Junjae thought he was done with the girl, but he couldn't shake the strange pull toward her. He watched her interact with everyday things as if seeing them for the first time. In his room, he noticed her gazing at him in a peculiar way, which made him uneasy. He told her firmly, "Don't get the wrong idea. I'm not interested in you. That's not why I brought you here," practically shouting at her. The girl, however, admired him. While he was baffled by her, she had no name, no family. Once, when she saw him watching a movie, she took the device and shook it, thinking she could release the people inside. Frustrated, he left the device with her and went to sleep. When he woke up, she was still watching, exhausted. A call from Jo Nam-do warned him that the businesswoman had sent her men after them, and they had discovered his location. With no choice, Junjae took the girl and fled. She felt happy being with him, even as he constantly tried to rid himself of her. The girl had exceptional fighting skills and, without him realizing it, protected him each time. Together, they escaped the businesswoman's men, and this adventure deepened her attachment to him. She was convinced he was always trying to protect her. Junjae noticed how much she loved food and brought her everything she wanted. To hide, he took her to a church, introducing her as his wife and explaining that she was sick and couldn't speak. However, to his surprise, she spoke in front of them. Pulling her aside, he asked how she had learned to speak. She explained that after watching movies all night, she had learned everything from them. Though he had thought of her as delicate, he was shocked to see her drink water in a strange way. Constantly embarrassed by her quirky behavior, he was taken aback when, at the end of the day, she stood before him and said she loved him. He responded coldly, "Love is weakness. Don't fall for anyone. Love makes you vulnerable and robs you of control over your actions." He took her to the last place he had seen his mother, the place where she had left him when he was just 10 years old, without even saying goodbye. While they were there, they were surprised by the arrival of the businesswoman's men. The girl had no choice but to grab him and jump into the ocean. In the water, she transformed back into a mermaid. She swam close to him, confessing her love, and promised she would return to him someday. However, he had to forget all their memories together. She kissed him, drawing out all their shared memories. In another timeline, the governor learned from the mermaid that they had known each other since childhood. She revealed that she had saved him from drowning when they were kids and that they had continued to meet as they grew older. When his father forced him to marry, she decided to protect him from the pain of their shared memories and longing. Using her ability to erase memories, she kissed him and took away everything they had experienced together. That's why, when he later saw her at Yang's house, he didn't recognize her. Junjae woke up alone on the shore. He remembered what had happened, but in his recollection, all the memories were solely his. There was no trace of her in his life during that time. Looking at his hand, he was surprised to find a bracelet there, unsure of its origin or how it got there. Returning home, he found his two friends hiding from the businesswoman. After settling in, he began having strange dreams that startled him awake. Meanwhile, the mermaid, determined to keep her promise to return to him one day, left the ocean and came to the city where he lived. Her task was difficult, as she only knew his name. Their fates seemed intertwined, always bringing them to the same place, even without noticing each other. Exhausted and hungry, the girl struggled to find food. Seeing a group of girls stealing from their friend, she thought it might be a way to get money. She approached a small schoolgirl, but hesitated before stealing from her. The girl scolded her, asking how a grown woman could steal from a child. Upon learning she was starving, the child took her to eat. Before entering school, the little girl gave her some money and told her to find her loved one. On her way, the mermaid met a beggar who told her that the area was home to the rich, who often discarded barely used clothing. The mermaid dressed herself in some discarded clothes and remembered an apartment number she thought might be Junjae's. She went there immediately, discovering it was a decorative fish exhibition. That night was Junjae's birthday. His friend Minzy, who loved him deeply, lived with her brother and his wife. She asked their cook to prepare a special meal. The cook mentioned it was also her son's birthday, and he loved that dish. Minzy brought the food to Junjae, and as he ate, the taste reminded him of his mother's cooking. Memories of his happy days at home with his father and mother came flooding back, when the three of them had been so content together. On his birthday, Junjae had a habit of visiting the aquarium, the same place his mother used to take him. That evening, the mermaid, unable to resist her hunger, dove into the water to eat the fish. Everyone thought she was part of a show, including Junjae, who glanced at her but didn't recognize her. She tried to stop him before he left, but before she could, his friend sent him a photo of the girl who had been with him in Spain. At that moment, Junjae remembered the girl he had seen in the aquarium. He rushed back there only to find her trying to escape from the security guards. He stepped in and tricked them, pretending to be a detective there to arrest her. The girl looked at him in disbelief as if she couldn't believe she had finally found him. Episode 4. The mermaid surfaced in the city. It was discovered that she had taken some clothes and left a pearl in their place. That was her way of repaying people. Rumors began to spread, claiming that when a mermaid leaves the water to live among humans, chaos follows. The antagonist seized the opportunity, gathering his men to capture her. He instructed them to target her legs, as that was her weak point. If they injured her legs, they could easily catch her. Moments before they could capture her, the governor arrived and saved her. Meanwhile, Junjae's mother, unknowingly, prepared food for her ex-husband's house. When her ex-husband ate the food, he felt a wave of nostalgia and remembered his wife and son. He recalled his promise to his wife to make their family wealthy and never abandon them. But the reality turned out differently, and the guilt weighed heavily on him. He asked his loyal driver if he had yet found Junjae's whereabouts. The driver promised to locate him as soon as possible. However, unbeknownst to them, the ex-wife was listening in on their conversation via a bug planted in the car. She was determined to keep track of her husband's actions, deeply worried that he might rekindle his relationship with his son, the sole heir. She even hired a thug to monitor the boy and learn everything about him. Junjae, meanwhile, took the girl aside and asked her, "Who are you? I'm certain I've met you before, but I just can't remember." When she refused to answer, he walked away, leaving her behind. However, she followed him, and after a while he saw her being conned by someone. He stepped in again and rescued her. The girl admired him deeply, as he never seemed to give up on her. To ensure he wouldn't leave her again, she clung to his clothes, much to his annoyance. He disliked how close she was getting to him. Suddenly, the sound of fireworks startled her. Mistaking it for gunfire, she pulled him down, saying, "Don't worry, I'll protect you." He looked at her, baffled by her behavior, and explained that they were just fireworks in the sky, harmless to anyone. She gazed up at the sky, her eyes full of wonder, while he, in turn, found himself captivated by her. Her innocent joy reminded him of his mother, whose words and presence had left a deep impression on him. Junjae had lost his mother when he was 10, leaving him to live with his father and stepmother, who treated him cruelly in his father's absence but acted kind in front of him. Frustrated, Junjae told the girl, "If you don't tell me who you are, I'll leave." When she refused to answer, he was about to walk away but ultimately couldn't abandon her, especially after learning she had no family to return to. He took her to his house, where she ate with the same chaotic enthusiasm as before. Watching her, it felt as though he was seeing her for the first time. When he asked about the bracelet, she admitted that she had given it to him. Under pressure from Jo Nam, Junjae let her stay, though only until he could figure out her story. The girl asked why she needed a name. His friends explained that it was normal to have one, so people could call her. She rejected all the names his friends suggested, except the one Junjae picked. **Shim Cheong. ***. She loved it because he had chosen it for her. Later, Minji arrived at the house to celebrate Junjae's birthday. Shim Cheong observed her with curiosity, confused by her behavior. While Minji acted refined and polite, Shim Cheong continued eating in her usual haphazard way. Much to Minji's confusion, it became clear that Minji was fond of Junjae, and Shim Cheong noticed this. Junjae had prepared a room for Shim Cheong above his own. That night, he regretted letting her stay. She kept jumping on the bed all night, leaving him unable to sleep. In the morning, she was full of excitement. She woke him up, saying, "It's time for breakfast." She was frightened by everything that moved, finding it all strange and unfamiliar. Around this time, the thug arrived in their neighborhood, trying to locate Junjae's house. Coincidentally, he ended up killing someone in the area after a confrontation. When Junjae heard about the incident, he ran a red light, rushing home to check on Shim, who was alone. Upon arriving, he found the thug at the door. At the last moment, Junjae managed to save her by quickly getting inside. Episode 5, the governor successfully saved the mermaid and took her to a safe place. Meanwhile, Yan Na planned to commit a crime in the village to convince the locals that the mermaid brought misfortune. This would make them hate her, allowing him to capture her easily. Yan Na's mistress discovered her location with the villagers' help. Upon hearing they were about to catch her, the governor rushed to rescue her. Back in the city, Junjae scolded Shim, yelling, "How could you open the door for someone while you're alone in the house? You're putting yourself in danger." She innocently asked, "Is there a shark here?" He replied, "Humans are more dangerous than sharks." Shim's mind was preoccupied with something else entirely. She pointed to the people on the metal box and asked if he knew them. Junjae realized she was talking about the TV. She was desperate to know the ending of the drama she had been watching. Junjae decided to trick her, pretending to talk to the characters. He told her he knew how it ended, but said she'd have to tell him where they had met before he'd reveal it. When she refused, he was astonished by her stubbornness. Even though she was dying to know the ending, she still wouldn't talk. At bedtime, the time he now dreaded the most, she dangled her head down from above, trying to make him laugh. Instead, he was terrified by how her hair looked hanging down. She only wanted to amuse him so he wouldn't kick her out. She didn't want the day to end because she knew it was her last chance. When Junjae told her, "If you don't talk, you'll have to leave tomorrow," she felt the pressure mounting. The next day, Minji arrived at the house. Shim was visibly irritated and even grabbed Minji's hand harshly. Junjae couldn't believe she had done that. When Shim tried to hide from him, he quickly found a way to get her out. He told her he was cooking something delicious, grilled food, and if she wanted to eat, she'd have to come down. Of course, she couldn't resist food and came down immediately. After eating, Junjae handed her a bus card and a phone. He told her, "You're leaving now, but don't call me unless you're ready to tell the truth." She agreed, but asked him to promise her one thing. "When the snow falls, meet me there." She wanted to confess her love for him. As she had learned from dramas, confessing love in the snow ensures it lasts forever. Junjae promised, just to get rid of her. Unbeknownst to her, he had placed a tracking device on her phone so he could monitor her movements and uncover her secrets. His two friends were upset with him, criticizing how he could send her out in the freezing cold, accusing him of being heartless. Shim, with nowhere else to go, returned to the street where she had met the beggar. The beggar took her back to the pile of clothes discarded by the rich. They both dressed from the pile. The beggar told her, "If you want to make money, hand out all these flyers. At the end of the day, you'll get your share." Shim agreed and began distributing the flyers. Junjae was tracking her through the phone, wondering why she had been standing in the same spot for so long. He went to her, and upon seeing her distributing flyers, immediately reported the person in charge to get rid of him. Then, he sent some guys to collect all the flyers from her, paying them a hefty sum. Noticing she was cold and hungry, he sent a woman to bring her some hot food and warm clothes. The woman, observing his actions, remarked, "You must love her." But he denied it, of course. Moments later, Junjae saw a young man asking for her phone number. He quickly called her and said, "I forgot to tell you something important. Don't give your number to anyone. Those guys are like sharks, very dangerous." While he was talking, she spotted him by chance and approached him, thrilled to see him. She told him she had found work and planned to earn money to pay him back, since she knew how much he loved money. At the end of the day, she began walking toward the tower after seeing snow falling. For the first time in his life, Junjae felt restless and unable to control his actions. He wanted to meet her and find out what she had to say, even though he thought she was a little crazy. His fascination with her kept growing, and he couldn't understand why. Before entering the tower, the girl was hit by a car. The driver was none other than the son of Junjae's stepmother. Junjae waited for her at the tower for a long time, but she never showed up. ###, Episode 6. The mermaid was saved by the governor's friend, who took her to a safe place, telling her to wait there until the governor came to her. He left to inform his friend, but was ambushed by Yan Na's men, who threw him off a cliff. Meanwhile, the governor searched for the mermaid but couldn't find her. Junjae waited anxiously for the girl at the tower, but eventually went down and found her phone and scattered flyers on the ground. He immediately realized she had been in a car accident. He searched for her everywhere, checking all the hospitals, but couldn't find her. When he finally located her after a long search, she was dying. He frantically called for help, but her heart had stopped, and it seemed like he was losing her. He held her hand tightly, and in that moment, she opened her eyes. She looked into his eyes and said she had a strange dream where he saved her. The truth was, she had been dreaming about the governor rescuing the mermaid many years ago. Junjae called his friends and asked them to forge an ID card and insurance number for her. Initially, they refused to waste their skills on something so trivial, but when they realized it was for Shim, they quickly got to work. When they arrived at the hospital, they found Junjae scolding her for putting her life in danger. They hit him and asked, "Why are you talking to her like that?" The three of them truly cared for her. Junjae found out that it was his brother who hit her with the car, which triggered memories of their past. Despite being his biological son, his father always prioritized his stepson, leading Junjae to run away from home after the annual ceremony to search for his mother. Shim was thoroughly enjoying her time at the hospital. Even though her leg was broken, she didn't feel any pain. She asked if she would stay there permanently, and they told her it would only be for a short while until she got better. She responded, "Then I'll marry everyone here until it's Junjae's turn." Her comments left everyone embarrassed. The doctor suggested a brain scan, suspecting something was off with her behavior. That night, Shim noticed that food was being served to all the patients except her. When she asked, she was told she needed to fast because she had surgery in the morning. She was devastated and couldn't believe she had to go without food. She called Junjae and complained, "Everyone is eating except me?" He laughed because he knew her weakness for food. He told her to hang up and follow the doctor's instructions, but after their call, he contacted the hospital, furious. He told them she didn't need surgery, and even if she did, they should inform her beforehand so she could prepare. He then rushed to the hospital to ensure she got her food. Shim called him again while eating, happily saying, "They brought me the most delicious meal!" He yelled, "Why are you calling me for this?" But after hanging up, he couldn't believe how soft he had become around her. Shim was recovering quickly and started treating the hospital like her home and the patients like her family. One day while walking downstairs, she saw the hospital director hitting a security guard. The guard had refused to remove a woman who was demanding answers about how her daughter had died in the hospital. Despite her broken leg, Shim charged at the director and kicked him powerfully. Naturally, she was arrested. When Junjae and his friends saw the recorded footage, he couldn't stop laughing. He realized how reckless and impulsive she was. At that moment, he decided to take revenge on the hospital director. Junjae entered the director's office pretending to be the son of the hospital owner. They exposed the director as corrupt and forced him to meet their demands. First, he had to apologize to the security guard. Second, he had to tell the grieving mother the truth about her daughter's death and ensure she received proper compensation. Lastly, and most importantly, he couldn't press charges against Shim. Afterward, Junjae learned that his stepmother was monitoring his father. Before he could inform anyone, a hired thug attacked him, setting up a staged accident. Later, Junjae took Shim to see the snow, as she had missed it the first time. When he saw her dressed for the outing, he was completely mesmerized. That day, Junjae wanted her to say the words, "I love you," so he could compare her voice to the one he kept hearing in his dreams. He was experiencing a whirlwind of emotions, but refused to admit his growing attraction to her. In episode 7, the governor found the mermaid dying, with pearls of her tears lying beside her. He took her, hoping to save her, but deep down, he knew it was too late. He said to her, "Even though I don't remember my memories with you, I wish we could be reborn in another world. This time I won't let you slip away." Junjae sensed that Shim was talking about a good man she once knew. She was, of course, referring to him before she erased his memories of her. Jealousy consumed him as he obsessed over the idea of someone else being in her life. He couldn't even sleep. He asked her, "Do you still meet him?" She casually replied, "Yes." When she described him, she said he was very handsome. Junjae snapped, "He must be a player. Handsome guys are always untrustworthy." She laughed, realizing he was describing himself. Meanwhile, the police uncovered the identity of the thug behind the town's crimes. Shim was starving. She went to the river and was about to jump in to catch some fish when a young man stopped her. They locked eyes and instantly recognized each other. He too was a merperson who chose to live on land after falling in love. He warned her, "Don't make the same mistake I did. Humans change." He explained that his lover left him when she discovered his true nature and even got married to someone else. He was surprised that Shim still didn't have money despite being able to produce pearls from her tears, which were worth a fortune on land. He told her, "If your lover doesn't confess his love within 2 months, you'll suffer the same fate." He offered to help her make Junjae jealous, thinking it might push him to confess. They cried together to gather pearls, then used the money to buy her new clothes, transforming her appearance. When they returned to Junjae's house, his jealousy flared up. He slammed the door in the young man's face, then began acting possessively. He told Shim not to wear short clothes, and even forbade her from leaving the house. His friends were baffled by his harsh behavior, but he avoided their questions. In episode 8, Junjae caught her in the water, but Shim cleverly avoided revealing her tale. His jealousy and admiration for her continued to grow. Meanwhile, his friend Min Jin, who worked in archaeology, discovered records of a forward-thinking governor from centuries ago. Among his sketches was one of a mermaid kissing a man in modern attire, wearing pants and a shirt. What shocked her most was that the man bore an uncanny resemblance to Junjae. Junjae struggled to piece together the memories resurfacing in his dreams. Desperate for clarity, he visited his therapist, who hypnotized him. Under hypnosis, he dreamed of the governor and saw Shim. He awoke confused, unsure of what was real. Shim, on the other hand, knew her time was running out. She only had 2 months before her heart would stop. She realized Junjae needed to fall in love with her quickly. Standing before him, she boldly asked, "Do you have any plan to love me?" Her question caught him off guard. When he answered, "No," she asked again and again. Despite her persistence, he continued giving the same answer. The girl was doing everything to get closer to him, hoping he would fall in love with her. She insisted he take her to the library, and once there, he left her to explore while he read about the governor. From the history books, he learned that the governor had died at the age of 27. Comparing himself to the governor, Junjae realized that the governor had died young. The governor, who had appeared in Junjae's dreams, also knew that he would die 20 days from that date. Shim went to visit her friend, only to discover he had passed away after his heart stopped, just as he had foretold. He had left a ring for his lover, containing the pink pearl, a tear of joy, the only one he had ever shed in his life. Around that time, Junjae was the target of an assassination attempt by the thug, acting on orders from his stepmother, who wanted to prevent the inheritance from being split between Junjae and her son. Junjae found out Shim was gravely ill. When he confronted her, she told him that if he ever discovered her secret, he would leave her immediately. Suddenly, he felt a sharp pain and collapsed. In his unconscious state, he dreamt of the governor, who told him, "Our fates are intertwined, but you must protect your beloved from the evildoers." In episode 9, Junjae regained consciousness. When he stood up, he told Shim, "You can't give up. You have to insist on getting what you want." They returned home and learned about the thug, who was now a wanted criminal. Shim told them she knew him and had seen him circling around her several times. At that moment, Junjae realized she was in real danger and needed his protection. The stepson discovered that his mother was plotting against Junjae and began investigating her, especially the incident involving the unconscious driver Nam. Junjae forbade Shim from going out alone, but she snuck out and went to the beggar, asking her, "What should I do to make him love me?" Junjae found her and asked why she kept coming to that place. She replied simply, "She's my friend." Furious, he told her she wasn't allowed to leave the house alone. Later, he took her to the hospital to visit Nam, where he met his father and spoke with him. His father assured him, "I never preferred my stepson over you. A parent's love for their children is always deep, even if it sometimes appears harsh." However, Junjae couldn't forget his lonely childhood in his father's house. That night, he confessed to Shim how much he had suffered when he ran away. "I was lonely, wishing my father would talk to me, but it never happened," he said. Meanwhile, Nam was planning a new con and decided to use Shim as part of his scheme. He convinced her to act like she was in a drama, claiming to be his secret fiancée and traveling with him. Junjae gave her 3 conditions for their mission: don't talk, don't laugh, and most importantly, don't eat in front of anyone. Not eating was the hardest for her, but she complied. After successfully deceiving the target, Junjae went to the historical site and saw an image of the governor with an inscription, "Protect your beloved and don't repeat my mistakes." Junjae thought to himself, "We may be alike, but our fates don't have to be the same. Change your destiny." He couldn't believe he was dreaming about the same person who existed in the past. In the flashback, when the governor realized he only had a few days left after his lover's death, the first thing he did was kill Yang to protect the people from his evil. Then he left behind a legacy for Junjae to discover, proving that his dreams were real and not just illusions. He hired an artist to draw his portrait and buried the painting under his house. Meanwhile, the thug was having dreams similar to theirs, envisioning Yano, a historical figure. In his dream, Yano was sentenced to death for betraying the governor. Junjae was also haunted by recurring dreams. Jonam told him, "You need to know the truth about Shim to find peace." He pointed out that she was unusual, reminding him of how her legs miraculously healed the same day they were injured. Junjae's stepmother had devised a plan to get rid of his father by giving him medications that worsened his health, and her scheme was beginning to take effect. Shim went out, and when she returned, she brought along a little girl who was her friend. The child had a unique ability. She could hear Shim without her speaking. In that moment, Junjae realized something. He, too, could hear her inner voice. Their latest con job led them to a house, which turned out to be the home of his mother, and also belonged to his friend Min-ji. As he ate his mother's food, memories flooded back. Though he remained unaware of how far she had been from him, a light rain began to fall. The mother he had searched for years but couldn't find was so close, yet out of reach. They quickly left the house upon realizing it belonged to Min-ji. Back at their place, Shim discovered they were con artists and had deceived her. She stared at Junjae, disbelieving that her beloved could be anything but a good man. Silent, she stood before him as he pieced together the truth. Shim was a mermaid. He was stunned by the revelation she had hidden from him. Shim went to her room and stared at her tears, realizing she had shed so many since coming to land. Meanwhile, Junjae reviewed his phone and began recalling fragmented memories. When he went to her room, she had disappeared. She had left his life completely and returned to her world. He ran out onto the street to find her, but she was nowhere to be found. All he had left were the memories in his mind. As he remembered everything that had happened, Junjae realized the mermaid had met the governor in the past, and they both died. Yet they had been reborn after centuries. He understood he had to continue the governor's mission, who had warned him not to let her fall into the hands of evildoers. Standing there, lost, Junjae didn't know what to do after his beloved returned to her world. In episode 11, the thug dreamt about Yano's execution. This time, the dream was crystal clear, and he recognized the faces of both the governor and the mermaid. He also realized the connection between all of them. In that moment, he understood that his enemies were Shim and Junja. Shim had indeed left the house. Taking all the clothes Junjae had bought for her during their con job, she returned everything to the store. There, by coincidence, she ran into Hyun, Junjae's stepbrother, who offered her a ride. Not wanting to go back home, she told him, "On TV, when people run away from home, they sleep at saunas." She asked him to take her there, and she spent the night in the sauna. Junjae searched everywhere for her, consumed by the fear of losing her forever. He visited all the places she frequented but found no trace of her. By chance, her phone turned on when some girl stole it from her bag. Tracking the signal, he found her location. When he saw her, he couldn't believe his eyes. He approached and hugged her tightly, speaking softly, but she refused to return home with him. Meanwhile, the police discovered the thug had been involved with a woman who had been married twice before. Both of her previous husbands had died under the same mysterious circumstances after losing their wealth. That woman turned out to be Junjae's stepmother, who had been the thug's partner for years. She was now employing the same tactics she had used with her former husbands, administering medications that were already taking a toll on Junjae's father, while deceiving him by staying by his side. When he returned home, he recalled his conversation with Shim about the good man she had been involved with. He connected the dots and realized she had been talking about him. However, he couldn't believe that she had referred to him as selfish and exploiting her without realizing she meant him. He spent the night unable to sleep, troubled by these thoughts while she was peacefully sleeping at the center. He decided to visit her and things started improving once he was able to read her thoughts. However, even this ability started causing him problems. He realized from her thoughts that if she touched water, she would grow a tail again. He tried to keep her away from water, which caused him to act impulsively. He began shouting at women and children to stop touching water and avoid putting it on the ground, excessively protecting her. This upset the women around them who had left their homes because of issues with their husbands. One woman said, "My house is next to the sauna, and my husband knows I'm here but didn't bother coming to reconcile. And despite your issues, your husband is right beside you to make up with you." She added, "Take him and leave. We're fed up with him." In truth, it wasn't just her, but all the women there were confused by his behavior in protecting Shim so obsessively. For Junjae, being able to read Shim's thoughts made things much easier. He started fulfilling her dreams without her even asking. Late one night, she told him not to lie to her again, which was her only condition for returning to his home. He weakened in front of her and promised not to lie again. The police became aware of the thug's presence in the area and were looking for him. They arrested him, but Junjae's main concern was Shim. He told the police that there was no complaint against him and that they were chasing the wrong person while letting the real criminal slip away, someone who could harm his beloved right now. When the police allowed him to speak to Shim on the phone, he told her to go home. She replied that a taxi was waiting for her, and she would take it right away. However, the driver turned out to be the thug. In this episode, the thug from Jun-jae's dreams revealed everything. He realized that Shim was a mermaid, and he understood the important fact that her tears could provide him with pearls. Before he could touch her, she warned him that mermaids could steal memories and curse humans to protect themselves. The thug recalled his dreams and confirmed her words. As soon as Jun-jae arrived at the scene, the thug fled, leaving Shim behind. Jun-jae took her into his arms, apologizing for being late and taking her back to their home, accompanied by a police officer. The presence of the officer in their house shocked his friends, but both he and the officer knew there was no complaint against them, and their records were clean. Jun-jae laid Shim on the bed, and she felt his tenderness toward her for the first time. When she asked if she would stay with him, he told her they would move from there, and she would help him move the furniture. That night, Jun-jae fell asleep in his room, hearing her thoughts. She wondered if he wanted her to move with him because she was strong, and she couldn't believe that was what he meant. At first, he was pleased with her thoughts, especially when she was wondering if he loved her. But as the night went on, her constant thoughts began to trouble him, making it difficult for him to sleep. He went to her room to tell her to stop thinking, but when he entered, he found her quiet, and he calmed himself, asking her not to think at all. He told her to sleep now and rest so that she could wake up refreshed in the morning. When he saw that she was about to listen to him, he went back to bed to sleep. However, she woke up again and continued thinking obsessively. Her thoughts, which she expressed quickly, were driving him crazy. In the morning, neither of them had slept well, and they were both very tired. Despite this, she was still thinking, and he had to deal with her thoughts as if he didn't hear them. Sometimes he laughed. Sometimes he got angry with her. When he heard her thoughts about her face turning red when he was near her, he decided to make his face red like hers. She moved closer to pinch his face, and he moved closer to kiss her. At that moment, he heard her thoughts again, and she wondered why she couldn't think straight anymore. He couldn't take it anymore, so he backed away from her. Her jealousy was now very clear to him. He laughed when he heard her thinking, in the midst of her jealousy, about how tasty the nuts were. Shim said to someone that Jun-jae was planning to make her fall in love with him. Someone who seemed to be a friend told her that it wasn't the first time he had done that and deceived someone. It was his nature. She compared him to a skilled hunter and herself to the fish caught in the net. This conversation deeply upset Shim. When Jun-jae saw her, he told her, "Please sleep and don't think too much." Of course, he was asking for the impossible, as she was deeply upset. In the morning, she asked for help from Taika, wanting him to teach her how to act. When Jun-jae saw her, he became very jealous. He told her to stay away from him and not whisper in his ear like that. She returned to her thoughts, feeling very confused by his behavior. He became upset and asked loudly, "Do I have to spell it out for you? Wasn't it clear to you?" He was replying to the thoughts in her head, and he felt deeply embarrassed, forcing himself to withdraw after his outburst. Meanwhile, his father's health worsened due to the medication. The doctor warned him that he was on the path to losing his sight. At the hospital, he saw his ex-wife, Jun-jae's mother. She recognized him immediately, but he could hardly see her. When he walked away without speaking to her, she remembered how his wife had tricked her when she entered her house and trusted her with her life, only for her to steal her husband. Jun-jae's brother called him, telling him that his father was in danger and that it was his responsibility to protect him. He said, "It's your duty because you're his real son. As for me, I must protect my mother because I'm her son." The boy knew what his mother was doing and couldn't bear to stay silent about it. Now, Jun-jae had only one goal: to sleep peacefully. Every night he asked Shim not to think so much. He couldn't take it anymore. But she had a million questions in her mind that she couldn't say out loud. He could hear them, but he couldn't answer them. He was weak in front of her. He was troubled by her confusion and stopped her before she could enter her room. He told her to calm down and assured her that things were very good between them. He moved closer and kissed her, and this was his first confession of love to her. In episode 13, Jun-jae finally weakened and decided to confess his love to Shim, but he did so in his own special way. He moved closer to her and kissed her, wanting to reassure her and let her know the truth about his feelings. Shim was certain that he loved her, and she was overwhelmed with happiness. Her thoughts repeated the phrase, "Jun-jae loves me," hundreds of times, and he could hear her thoughts, feeling joy for her happiness and the way she expressed her love for him. Shim's happiness was reflected in her actions as she helped everyone around her. While assisting people, she happened to meet his mother, who had been a victim of a robbery, and Shim saved her. During this time, her friend Minji discovered that the cook at their house was Junjae's mother. Since their relationship wasn't good, she decided to keep the whole situation a secret. Junjae's stepmother continued with her plan, giving him medication every day to make him sick, but she didn't stop there. She wanted to hurry up the process of his death, especially after learning that he had made a will for his only son. She took advantage of his failing eyesight and tricked him into signing the will, leaving everything to his son. He signed the will feeling reassured. Junjae, however, wanted to know the ending of the story of the king and the mermaid. He went to the doctor who treated him and asked to be put to sleep. When he was asleep, he learned that the king had died while trying to save the mermaid. The mermaid, seeing him die, approached him and stabbed herself with the dagger. Junjae confirmed that both the king and the mermaid had died from a dagger wound from Yano. In episode 14, Junjae was very sad. He saw himself as the reason for his lover's death, and he became convinced that his fate was the same as Shim's. The moment he saw her, he hugged her, and his fear for her was overwhelming. He wanted to make her happy and give her the romantic love she dreamed of. Meanwhile, the thug went to the doctor to know the end of his old story. When he was put to sleep, he learned that the king and the mermaid were not killed by him, but he refused to speak out about who actually killed them. Heo, although knowing what his mother was doing to her husband, didn't care much anymore after realizing that his true father was the one who mattered most to him. He gave in. When his mother pushed him down the stairs, he didn't speak the truth, but instead asked for medical help. He insisted on continuing the treatment at home, hiding his presence there from everyone, including Junjae. In episode 15, Junjae heard Shim's thoughts and learned that she would die if anything happened to him. At that moment, he had to confess everything he knew to her. He told her that he knew her whole story and that he could hear her thoughts. He told her about the king and the mermaid and what happened between them. She listened in shock as he revealed the truth he had known all along. When she asked him about the ending of the story, he lied to her, saying that the king and the mermaid lived happily together for the rest of their lives. His lie made her very happy, and she felt reassured that their fates were the same and they would live in happiness too. His brother Heo, wanting to protect their mother, decided to die in her place. He entered Junjae's room and disconnected all of the life support machines. At that moment, the thug came in and told him not to do anything until he knew the result first, as otherwise Heo would have been arrested. Heo, wanting to know why the thug was protecting him, stayed by his mother's side. After he collapsed, doctors saved him, and nothing serious happened to him. Meanwhile, Shim was very happy and decided to throw herself a birthday celebration. Shim chose that day for her birthday celebration because she didn't know her real birth date. She invited everyone she loved, including her old beggar friend, the little girl, and even her new friend, Junjae's mother. On their way to the party, they were seen by Junjae. When his mother heard his name, she immediately recognized him as her son. She couldn't believe her eyes, seeing him right in front of her. Junjae read Shim's thoughts, and Sumiha, who was with him, mentioned that she was finally going to meet his mother. The mother and son stood in front of each other, still in disbelief. She reached out and hugged him. She had finally found her son. The whole family celebrated Shim's birthday, and it was a beautiful celebration with joy in everyone's hearts. In episode 16, Heo learned from his mother that the thug was his real father. He discovered the full truth about his mother and how she had caused the deaths of her husbands. Despite knowing all this, he continued to protect her. She explained that she did all of this so that he would never have to live in poverty or loneliness, as she had. Junjae started to grow suspicious of his father's absence. He helped his friends get into the house, and when he met his father, he told him that his wife was causing him harm. He shared her real name with him and explained that she had done the same to her previous husbands. However, the father didn't believe him, saying that all Junjae cared about was proving that he had been wrong 17 years ago. He believed Junjae was trying to make him hate his wife and regret ever leaving Shim's mother. When Junjae insisted on taking him away from the house for his own protection, the father refused. With no other choice, Junjae had to leave and leave him behind. Meanwhile, the thug found Shim, and she stood in front of him, showing incredible courage. She took all of his memories and dreams from him, but left him with the thing that had been killing them. She told him it was his fate to hear their screams and never know what she had done to them. She warned him that he would live alone for the rest of his life. In episode 17, Shim also learned the real ending of the king and the mermaid, the truth that Jun-jae had kept from her. She found out that he had lied when he told her they were happy. The thug had truly forgotten everything, including his son and his mother. Heo, when he encountered him, was about to lose her sanity because he was the one she relied on the most to carry out her crimes. She took him to her house to hide him while continuing with her plan for her husband. She kept giving him the same medication, but the husband, who had not forgotten his son's words, began to suspect her. During this time, she noticed that he was not taking the medication. When she realized the danger and how he could cancel the will at any moment, she decided to finish him off completely with poison. The husband, who hadn't been paying attention to what he was drinking, took the drink thinking it was water. As soon as he felt the effects, realizing that he was dying, he called his son and apologized. He told him that he was sorry for leaving him and his mother so many years ago. He also told him that if he were born again, he would live as a faithful husband. Jun-jae realized his father was in danger and rushed to his house. By the time he arrived, his father had already passed away. He collapsed by his father's side, unable to believe that he was gone. He felt guilty for leaving him alone all those years. In episode 18, Jun-jae lost his mind when he saw his brother treating his father as though he were his own real son. He hid him, convinced that his father didn't die naturally. He told his friends what had happened, and when they arrived at the hospital, Shim was devastated for him. Jun-jae stood before her, begging her to take away all the memories of his father. He said the memories were hurting him, but she refused. She told him that even if he forgot, the love would remain in his heart, and he would never be able to erase it. The stepmother arrived, acting in a very provocative manner. She cried loudly as though she were mourning, but everyone around her was sure she was lying. Hyo wanted to protect his mother from those around her. After confirming that she had indeed killed his father, he realized he had no one to turn to except for Jun-jae. He told him that he knew all about his past, and if he didn't help him, he would imprison him. Jun-jae never refused to help, replying, "Don't threaten me. I'll work for whoever pays me more." His words motivated Hyo, and he asked him to help him eliminate Jun-jae. Jun-jae, who was sure his father had been poisoned, tried to explain, but the stepmother and her son refused to listen. They accused him of being greedy for the inheritance. The police raided the house, but found nothing to implicate the wife. Shim decided to help her love. She confronted the stepmother, grabbing her violently and telling her she needed to confirm something. She entered the memories and found out that the stepmother had indeed killed her husband, which led to her arrest. However, there was no concrete evidence to convict her, and after 2 days, the police were forced to release her. There was an agreement that she would be taken to where they needed her. The attack was planned, and before he could get into the car, they struck him on the head. They took him there and injected him with poison that would stop his heart within half an hour. The stepmother requested to be left alone with him. When they went outside, she asked him how he could do this to his father. She admitted that she had indeed killed him and also her previous husbands. Suddenly, the police appeared around them. This was all part of an agreement with the friend who had never refused to betray his friend. He had been helping to gather evidence to convict the wife, Hyo. They watched in disbelief as they arrested his mother and prepared to arrest him too. At that moment, Hyo grabbed a gun from the police officer standing next to him. He took it and shot at Jun-jae, but Shim rushed toward him and saved him, taking the bullet in her back instead of her lover. In episode 19, Jun-jae held his beloved in his arms, unable to believe this was the end, just like the tragic end of The King and the Mermaid. The ambulance arrived, and he begged her to hold on. In her thoughts, she told him she loved him. Jun-jae cried by her side. For a moment, he feared this would happen, and now it had. They arrested the stepmother and her son, but Hyo was too weak to handle everything happening around him. He decided to end his life using the same poison his mother had used. Meanwhile, his mother, who was being interrogated, insisted she hadn't done anything wrong. At that moment, they received the news that her son was dying. She rushed to him, unable to believe what he had done. Her son told her that the days never passed easily for him, and the heaviest burden he ever carried was that she was his mother. Her son truly died at her hands in the same way she had always killed her husbands. Shim entered the operating room, and when the doctors emerged, they were amazed at her ability to endure. They said that a bullet like that would have killed anyone else. The doctor asked what she was eating to maintain her health like that. Jun-jae laughed and answered for her, saying she didn't eat anything special, but she ate a lot. At the same time, he woke up from the coma. In his dreams, Junimdo appeared, and he realized that Junimdo had killed Yang in the days of the king, freeing the people from his evil. Junjae thanked his friend for helping him this way, and both were surprised when Shim woke up from the coma. Meanwhile, the thug was following the news but didn't understand what was happening. Even when he heard the news about his son's death, he didn't really know who it was after Shim took his memories. He only remembered the doctor who had treated him. When he went to him, he asked the doctor to put him to sleep so he could figure out who he really was. When he fell asleep, he dreamed about the doctor and learned that he had once been the priest, the being who had told him he would be born again, but live a life of solitude with no one able to bear his existence. In his dream, he also saw the person who had killed him and realized it was done as revenge for his father's death. When he woke up, he told the doctor, "You knew all along, and surely you've been dreaming just like us. You've known all along what would happen to me." He attacked him, wanting to kill him. Just then, Junjae arrived and saved the doctor. The thug was about to kill Junjae as well, but the police arrived, along with Junam-do. The thug looked at Junam-do and immediately recognized him as the one who had killed him in the days of the king. He was terrified and said, "Why are you looking at me like that? I don't even know him." Junjae took his beloved out of the hospital and erased all the files related to her. He feared that someone might uncover her secrets. She had been afraid, and this fear wasn't normal at home. The whole family gathered together, but Shim was constantly exhausted and weak. Junjae realized that she was dying, and if she didn't return to her environment, no one would be able to save her. In that moment, he decided to sacrifice his love and let her go back. She was afraid of him because of the memories she shared with him. She told him, "Maybe I can't return to you again. You'll live the rest of your life in sorrow due to my absence." When he refused to let her erase their memories, she insisted. She took all of them with her, not just his but everyone else's in the house, so no one would remember her at all. Afterward, she went to her family, greeted them, and erased their memories too. When she reached the little girl, she greeted her but couldn't erase the memories with her. When she asked the girl why she was the only one able to hear her thoughts, the girl replied that she dreamed of her. Shim realized that the girl had lived during the time of the king, and her mother was a mermaid, just like her. That's why she had the ability to communicate with mermaids. Shim returned to the ocean. The next morning, Junjae woke up and found a pink pearl by his bed, the joyful tear of Shim, the girl who had disappeared from his life. 3 years later, Junjae left the scams behind and studied law. He eventually became a prosecutor. Junam-do also became a teacher and worked a respectable job. Through all this time, their friendship remained strong, and they were joined by the police officer who had become their friend. When Junjae drank, he would say he missed her terribly and couldn't bear her absence. Everyone was puzzled, not understanding who he was talking about. Junam-do mentioned that Junjae stayed in his room all the time, speaking to no one, going to the ocean at sunrise and sunset. Even Junjae himself didn't understand why he kept going there after all these years. The mermaid had been sick in the ocean, but when she regained her health, she returned to the land. She was very happy. The first thing she did was sell the pearl she had kept for 3 years. She had always planned to return to the land one day. While passing by a fish shop, she saw a girl who said she knew her. The girl tried to run away, but Shim stopped her and said, "You're a mermaid from the ocean." When they spoke, the girl explained why she had come to the land. She had the same story and had come for love, just like Shim. Shim explained that many of them lived on the land, not like normal humans. Their hearts were different from theirs. Shim returned to her lover's house, and when he opened the door, he looked at her and didn't recognize her. He even refused to let her in. When Junjae's mother arrived, she realized that the girl wanted to meet her son. She welcomed her warmly and invited her inside, even though she didn't remember her. She called Junjae to tell him that a beautiful girl was asking for him. Before he reached the house, she had arrived. She explained that she was there to ask for his hand in marriage, which shocked her because she didn't expect her to ask for marriage. The girl told her that Junjae's heart was hurt and that he was in love with someone, but he didn't even know who she was. This reassured her, though she didn't hear the part where the girl said she would marry someone else. When Junjae arrived at the house, he saw her, and her eyes were full of tears. He asked her, "Who are you, and why are you here?" He told her that he didn't recognize her. She realized that his life had gone on without her, and he had even forgotten her. He looked into her eyes and said, "Leave. I have a work appointment and I need to go now." When he left, she rushed after him but couldn't catch up. Snow began to fall, and she was terrified. Junjae approached her with an umbrella, and she heard her say that she had to return to the ocean. She also told him that she had no place in his life. He stood in front of her and asked, "Are you going to leave again and leave me behind?" She looked at him, unable to believe that he still remembered her. Indeed, she had erased his memory, but he had prepared for this day. He had recorded all his memories with her from the moment he met her, as well as everything about his story with the king. He said, "For 3 years, every day I thought of you so I wouldn't forget you. And now I remember you and all the memories we shared. I'm the only one in the world who remembers you. I can never forget you." He told her, "I waited so long for you to come back. When they told me that a girl was looking for me, I couldn't believe it. Finally, after all these years, I'll see you again." He took her to his room, and everything was as it had been, just as he had left it. He told her, "I bought this house so you would know where to find me when you returned." At that moment, she came closer to kiss him, but he was terrified that with each kiss, she would erase his memory again. But this time, she promised him she wouldn't do anything. They got married and moved to a house away from everyone, right next to the ocean. They lived happily together. He would complain about how much she ate, and she would say, "It's not me who eats a lot, it's our baby in my belly." She promised him that she would bring him pearls from her tears to help with expenses, but he told her, "Since we got married, you've stopped crying." She laughed and told him, "I'll try to depend on myself now." Jun Jae lived a very difficult life, starting with his parents' separation and the mistreatment he received from his stepmother. He lived on the streets and went through tough times, but he said, "After all that, true love came to me. The love that made me live with sorrow, but also made me live with happiness." Don't forget to subscribe for more. Check out more recaps you'll absolutely love right here.